And with all of those organizations, LinkedIn is vital because it enables you to connect directly to either clients, or even if you're selling to consumers, LinkedIn is very important for connecting to suppliers. And if you're in recruitment, it's very important also to get staff. So for example, a teacher, if a school is recruiting, it will be using LinkedIn to try and find talented staff. They might also be using it to connect to suppliers. So what I want to do is really get you to understand how LinkedIn works, what it's there for, and how you can use it effectively to get results for your business. I think the first thing that's important to understand about LinkedIn is that it is I often describe it as Facebook for business professionals. It is there for, unlike Facebook, where you're showcasing lots of personal information about yourself and your family and your friends, Facebook is purely for business. So the result is you get a lot less time wasting. People who are on LinkedIn are very, very direct and really kind of get straight to the point in terms of what they're looking to get when they want to contact you. Also, I think the other thing to understand about LinkedIn is it is primarily for business to business. So again, it's very much, if this is the place, if you are selling to other businesses, this is the right place for you to be. And what I'm going to talk about now is really how you can use that more effectively. So what are we going to look at? We're going to discuss, these are the main things we're going to discuss. So firstly, the 7 biggest mistakes that businesses unwittingly make on LinkedIn. And we're then going to look at, the next point we're going to look at is how to avoid them. We're going to look at influencers. Influencers are vital on LinkedIn. What I mean by an influencer is it's somebody on LinkedIn who is connected to your target market. So for example, you may be a pharmaceutical manufacturer. You're looking to source a contract with people in the NHS. There are people of major influence who will be able to talk to those end users that you want to sell to. So we're going to talk about influencers. We're going to talk about how to spot potential leads. So how can you identify somebody who could be a client of yours? And we're going to talk about how to get rapid results. That's the most important thing because we're all very time poor and there's a lot we want to achieve. So how can you use LinkedIn effectively without it eating up a lot of your time? Ultimately, what you're looking for is business, not to simply just go and network. Okay, so without further ado, let's start off by looking at one of the 7 biggest mistakes that businesses inadvertently make. So mistake number 1, and probably this will probably apply to many of you, is having an empty or incomplete LinkedIn profile. When people go onto LinkedIn and they're looking for a solicitor that's an expert on patents, for example, what they're going to do is they're going to see, they're going to come across your profile, and they're going to very, very quickly make a decision on whether you are the right person for them or not. Now, if your profile hasn't got a photograph, or there is no professional headline summarizing what you do and how you can help them, they're not going to spend any more time looking at you. So your LinkedIn profile is your elevator pitch. You've got about, some of you might be familiar with the elevator pitch, where somebody is standing in an elevator with you, they're about to get off at the next floor, they ask you about what you do, and you literally have 3 or 4 seconds to tell them about your business before they leave the elevator. LinkedIn is very similar. What you're seeing here on the screen is the top of a profile, and what someone's going to do is they're going to make a decision on whether to speak to you. If there's a photograph there, they get a measure of who you are. Without a photograph, you're anonymous. So that's the first step. And when I say a photograph, unlike Facebook, it's not a photograph of you with your kids. It's a professional headshot. We actually recommend that you get a photo taken by what I would call a corporate photographer, someone who's experienced in actually photographing people in business situations. The next thing that you really need to do is to have what's called a professional headline. What you can see here with this example is that Keith Carroll is Managing Director of Alimac Heck, right? And what we don't know is we don't really know anything about Keith. We don't really know anything about what he can do, how he can add value. Now, the mistake that's commonly made on LinkedIn is that your professional headline is people think it's your job title. So people ask you, what do you do? I'm a managing director. I'm a partner. I'm an accountant. That doesn't really help people. What you should be doing with your LinkedIn professional headline is actually outlining how you can add value to a potential client, which means what can you actually do that will help them. What I want to do now is just show you my LinkedIn profile so I can illustrate that. So here's this is the LinkedIn Advanced Search, which I'll show you later. What I'm going to do now is go and take you to my profile. Now what you're going to see is, as well as a professional corporate headshot, there is a professional headline. And what that professional headline says, it doesn't sound a managing director, because for most people looking at me, that's not of any interest to them. What they want to know is, how can I make a difference to them? And that's what I'm saying here. Social media that converts your followers into clients. They may want to know, the sorts of businesses I support. They might want to know what sector I specialize in. So let's just say, for example, you're a solicitor. You wouldn't simply say solicitor. You'd say solicitor that specializes in property. You might be a solicitor that helps people get planning permission. So what you do is solicitor, property solicitor, specializing in getting businesses planning permission to extend their property. Whatever it is, you need to be able to say in 2 and a bit lines what it is that you do that makes a difference. Because if you haven't done that there, you've lost the opportunity to build a relationship. Just going through very quickly, some of the other things you want to think about also is having a professional summary. And that's where really you elaborate on what you've said above by going into a bit more detail about how your business adds value to clients. So that's mistake number 1. I'm going to now talk about mistake number 2. And that's having a blank LinkedIn company page, or even worse, having no company page at all. Now, it's quite common for small businesses to set up a personal profile for the staff of that company. But what you also need to do is set up a business page. And that is really where, that's a page that lists all the staff at your company. It goes into more detail about what the company does as opposed to what you do. And it also lists products and services. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you an example of a company. So let's just take, as an example, let's just take a drugs company, GSK. And what you see on their LinkedIn page is, you can see here, you can access the staff. You can actually connect to staff at the company. Here you can see a summary of what GSK does. And then below that, if we minimize this box, you can also see their updates. And this is the company updates. So this is things on vacancies at the company. This is PR. This is about what the company are doing in the industry. It's about how they help their patients. And what people can do is they can post comments and they can like and they can share these updates in much the same way as you can do that on a Facebook page. Now I talked earlier about how LinkedIn is Facebook for business. So if you're a business, you also need to use this page to actually showcase what your company does and how your company is adding value. You also have, you can set up a career section where you can recruit, and then also there's a services page. And this is where you can actually list the products and services that your business provide. You can set up a number of different pages. Each of these go to their own standalone web pages. And what happens here is people can recommend your services. You can list details of who to contact if you're interested in that service. You can even post videos on the right-hand side here. So there's quite a lot you can do with your company page to actually kind of get an idea of the business and what it does. Now, when you set up a LinkedIn profile, what you should do is you set up your experience in terms of where you're working. And what that does is that should link to your company page. So for example, if I move my mouse over Brainstorm Digital, as you can see, there is now a link to that page. And people can go to that page and look up more detail. So there you go. That's where I studied. Links to other places I've worked at in the past. And that now links to where I currently work. So mistake number 2, it's really key that you actually follow, you actually create your own company page. So let's look at mistake number 3. Mistake number 3 is sending blank connection requests. Now, we've all probably seen people we want to connect to on LinkedIn. It might be a contact that we've not seen for years. It might be that we met somebody at a conference recently. Or it might be that we've come across a company that we think we'd like to do business with. And what we do is we send them a connection request. Now, what happens usually is you'll get a connection request like this. it'll say something like, I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn, Danny Beaumont. Now, if you don't know who that person is, that message is not going to mean anything to you. So that's mistake number 3, is that you should not be sending blank connection requests, because if you do, people won't connect to you. They won't know who you are. Let's just look at why that mistake's often made. Okay, so I'm going to search for somebody now called Joe Blogs. Now, what most people do on LinkedIn is they simply press the connect button, and that sends off a connection request to that person without any introductory message. Now, the reason you shouldn't do that, I've just talked about, but I'll give you another reason what to think about why you shouldn't be doing that. You might have met somebody at a conference 3 weeks ago that you'd like to connect to, and they might know you, or sorry, you might know them, and you might remember them, but they don't necessarily remember you. So if you don't send an introductory message, you're not going to be able to jog their memory. The other thing is, you're not explaining why you want to get in touch with them. Now, with LinkedIn, it's not unusual to connect to someone who you don't yet know. But the idea about LinkedIn is that you're not just connecting to loads of people. It's actually that you're supposed to be able to get to know the people you're connecting to in order to build a relationship. So you actually have to tell them why you want to connect to them if you want to get a response. And what you should do then is, firstly, you have to actually go into the profile. So let me just show you. So I'm going to look at Joe Blogs, and then I've got the option to connect to him. So I click on that, and then I get a connection request page. Now, what you can do on the connection request page is list the reason why you want to connect to each other. So what you can do is you've got all these reasons: colleague, classmate, we've done business together, friend. If you're in the same LinkedIn group, you can choose that. There's other. Other is if they've given you their email address, you can put in their email address. Sometimes you don't have any of those options, and what you can do is, it's not ideal, but what you can do is you can put in that we've done business together, and then you can actually put in an explanation and say, look, we've not yet worked together, but we met at a conference, and this is why I'd like to connect. So you can put in some context so someone knows why you wanted to connect to them. But what I will tell you is if you do put in a context, for example, it might be that you share contacts, you've got contacts in common, you've got interests in common, you've got connections in common. If you put some context in, it's much more likely that that person will connect with you because they'll know where you're coming from. So that is number 3. Okay, so
Danny, I have a question before you go to number 4. What do you think about this open networker facility? I know that some people call themselves lions, and there's even a group that is called Open Networker, so that people
yes. No, there are 2 things on LinkedIn. There's something called the Open Link Network, which I will show you. So if you look at my profile, I don't think yes, you'll see that. Can you see that symbol there with the dots? So that's the Open Link Network.
Yes.
What the Open Link Network enables you to do is enables you to send a email. Anyone who's got that on their profile, you can send them a direct email. And usually LinkedIn charges you if you're not yet connected to that person, and you send them what's called an in-mail. You usually have to have a premium membership for that. If you've got if you're both Open Link, you can send each other messages. But there's one other thing you're talking about is some people have LION after their lion after their name. What those people say is that they're willing to connect with anybody, and I would just be a little bit wary of that. In that, if you've got 24,000, I know one person who's got 24,000 connections. I'd ask what value those connections have to you if you're just connecting with anybody and everyone. If, for example, let's just say you are looking to build up connections in the legal industry, so fine, you connect directly to people in the legal industry. But very often, people on the Lion network are trying to connect with large numbers of people, and just people just to connect to anyone and everyone. That's not got a lot of value. So I would be a bit wary of that. Also, I think sometimes people are also a bit wary about connecting to open networkers because they're worried that they're going to be spammed. So I would say just draw a compromise, and that don't be wary, don't be scared to connect to people who you don't yet know. That's fine, but don't necessarily connect to everybody. In the same way, would you necessarily swap business cards with anybody you met on the street? I don't think so. On the other hand, if you spoke to somebody who you feel there might be some mutual benefit, of course you'd connect to them.
Of course.
So that would be my advice. So the next thing I would like, the next sort of major mistake I'd like to share is the importance of ensuring you've actually got some visual material on your profile. This is a common mistake. I'd say about 90% plus of LinkedIn profiles have no photos, no presentations, no rich media. And what that means effectively is that you've lost an opportunity to actually tell a story about you, tell a story about what you do for your clients. Because it's one thing to say something on your profile, it's another thing to actually demonstrate it. And people are very visual, and people are always much more responsive if you can share videos, if you can share presentations. Let me just show you what that looks like. When you go to edit your LinkedIn profile, you have the ability to upload presentations. So you'll see now if I go to my summary, I've got an option there to add a link to something, or I've got an option to upload. If you look at what my mouse says, it says add a link to a video, image, document, or presentation. So that gives you quite a few options, and I'll show you in practice what that means. If we go down to the profile, you'll see as we go down, there's a number of different PowerPoint presentations here. You can also put PDFs on, and you can even put videos on. So if I just click on this, you'll see it leads to a YouTube video. So not dissimilar to the way you can upload photos, you can upload video to a Facebook profile. You can also do that with your LinkedIn profile. It's a relatively new feature. It's been rolled out to all accounts probably about a year ago, a bit over a year ago, but it is a lost opportunity if you don't put visual material there, because people are always much more interested in images than they are in words. That's the way people are. For example, if you write a blog post or if you write a Facebook update, if it's a visual update, you're going to get a far higher engagement rate than if you just put text. Unfortunately, people don't read, but they do look. So that's a really important point number 4, which I'd like to stress. Okay, so mistake number 5 is ignoring connection requests. So, Christina, if I was to say to you, when you get requests from strangers, what do you usually do?
I usually look at their profile first, just to see first of all if there is really a real person behind.
Yeah.
I'm an open networker as you are, so I usually accept, confidently those that accept with me. But I usually accept. Maybe in the past couple of years, when I have accepted a connection and I see that I receive spams afterwards, I might have disconnect myself from these people. But that is it only happens maybe 2 or 3 times. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, you're right. It's I think what's key is to actually, somebody wants to connect to you, don't automatically say no. You will have an example. For example, people assume if someone wants to connect to me, the first thing people say is, what do they want? What do they want from me? Why do they want to connect to me? And surprisingly enough, sometimes people want to connect to you because they want to buy from you. They don't just want to sell to you. And sometimes, in fact, what happens is that people, maybe they do want to buy from you, or they're interested in buying from you. They may not be ready to buy yet, but they are beginning to think and look around at what is out there. And you're losing a major opportunity if you don't at the very least say, thank you for your connection request. Is there anything I can help you with? So you don't even have to accept people automatically, and that's why I wanted to show you this screenshot here. You've got an option when you get a connection request. There's the accept button, but there's actually a little bit on the right-hand side of the button. If you click on that, you get the option reply, don't accept yet. And that's your opportunity before connecting to somebody to ask them, what they're looking for or how you can help them. Conversely, there will be people sometimes, yes, who do want to, maybe they do want to sell something to you, but again, it's worth hearing out what they have to offer, because if there's a mutual benefit, it could work. So, and this also ties into what I was saying earlier about why you should always send a message to people, because people's first reaction when they get a connection request is, what's in it for me? Why does this person want to connect to me? You're making it a lot easier for them if there's an explanation there. So number 5, just to summarize, is don't ignore connection requests because it could be a potential business opportunity that you're missing out on.
I mean, I believe personally that if I see what has been happening for my business, LinkedIn has been a very good tool at times to find people that do the same thing that I do, and just to create partnerships. I've met people like this, so yes, absolutely, I agree with you.
Absolutely, and LinkedIn that's what it is. It's a networking tool, and people are actually quite open-minded about connecting to you. It's really about what you do once you connect to them. It's connecting to them and then what you do next, which I'll talk a little bit about later. But it's so valuable. And just to build on this point number 5, the reason you shouldn't ignore connection requests. Just about 4 weeks ago, I got a connection request, and the person didn't accompany it with an explanation, but I did reply to them and asked if there was anything I could help them with. And it turned out indeed to be a business opportunity. So it was somebody who wanted to buy from us, but wanted some more information. So that just goes to show why you shouldn't be so quick to ignore people. Okay, so number 6 I want to talk about is not being active on LinkedIn groups. So I'm not sure how many of you are currently on LinkedIn groups, but it is I would describe it as a real hidden secret of how to actually build up your network on LinkedIn, how to build up your connections. Because people who are active on LinkedIn groups get far more people viewing their profile than people who are that aren't active on LinkedIn groups. And basically, LinkedIn groups are a bit like a networking meeting. It's a place where you can go and talk to people. And let's just go and show you some LinkedIn groups. Here we go. Here are some of mine. And the way I would use LinkedIn groups is it's a place to go potentially where your clients are going to be. So not just where your clients are going to be, it might also be a place where you want to talk to other professionals. So I am a member of, some of the groups I'm a member of are places where I can talk to other marketing professionals. But in the main, I use it as a place to go and where I know I can go maybe and talk to other experts in my industry. So one of the areas that I focus on, the major area I focus on, is pharmaceuticals. You'll see there's quite a few pharmaceutical-related groups that I'm a member of. Now what you can do in these groups is you can actually go in and talk to other professionals. And because it is like a networking group, it's a really opportunity to build relationships. So if you go out and start a conversation and people start talking to you, it's quite easy to then go and talk to them. It's quite easy to then go connect to them. So for example, if I was to post a discussion and somebody replied to what I said, and I maybe had replied to them, it's quite easy for me then to go and visit their profile, or I can send them I can actually reply to something they've said. I can send them a private message. That's another thing I can do. And I can actually go and connect to them. So this guy Thomas here, I can actually go and connect to his profile. So you've got an opportunity to actually use groups. If you use them correctly, it's actually a place you can go and talk to your clients. So think quite carefully. Think about what industry you're in. Think about who your target clients are, and go to those LinkedIn groups and go and talk to them. Be careful about which groups you go to. Some groups are going to be full of competitors. So for example, if you're an accountant, you wouldn't necessarily go to an accountant's group, but if you're an accountant that specializes in I know one accountant, for example, who specializes in video, he specializes in film and TV. So if you do specialize in TV, there are lots and lots of LinkedIn groups where people who operate in that sphere go and talk to each other. So that's a place you go, and that's a place that you can go to. What you do once you're on a LinkedIn group, and this is a really important thing, this really relates to the next point, is not to sell. So let's go and look at point number 7, selling on LinkedIn. This is a real no-no. In fact, it's a no-no for social media altogether. I think social media is sort of misunderstood. A lot of people think, okay, I'll go onto LinkedIn, I'll set up my profile, and I'll put up lots of messages about how we've got special offers. What that will do is it will turn people off you, because people don't want you to talk about yourself. People want you to talk about them and their problems. So if you go onto LinkedIn groups, for example, and you post lots of promotional messages, what will happen is people will not only listen, not only ignore what you're saying, but even worse, you could get blocked from LinkedIn group. Now, there is a system on place in LinkedIn called site-wide auto-moderation. What site-wide auto-moderation is it's a system on LinkedIn that if you get blocked by a moderator of a particular LinkedIn group, you then get blocked by all the other LinkedIn groups that you're a member of. And what you'll find is every discussion you post in every single LinkedIn group you're a member of gets subject to moderation. It means it joins a moderation queue and it doesn't get published straight away. The person who manages that LinkedIn group has got to approve your post. You don't want that to happen. So a really key thing to do, because of the crackdown on spam, a really key thing to do is not to sell. Now, your question might be, well, I'm a business, I'm there to make money, I'm there to get clients. How can I promote my business if I don't sell? What I would say to you, it's about building relationships, right? Social media is, I just often describe it as a courtship, right? The same way that you wouldn't necessarily jump into bed with somebody the moment you met them, LinkedIn is very, very much about building up a relationship. Before people can buy from you, they need to know you, they need to like you, they need to trust you. So, for example, if I'm selling to the pharmaceutical industry, what I do is I take the time to look up what problems people experience in that industry. And what I do is I try and answer their questions. So I post questions, I post discussions, asking people about the sort of marketing problems that they have, and I put forward suggestions on things they could be doing differently. I also put out questions that get them thinking about what they could be doing differently. And what I'm doing all the time is I'm educating them. I'm educating them about how best to market yourself, but I'm also giving them a feeling of what I'm like and what I'm like to work with. If they like what I have to say, if they ask me questions and they like my answers, if they like my updates, what that does is it builds up confidence in me. It builds up trust in me. And also they start get a feeling of the sort of person I am. And if they like who I am, they'll then be interested in connecting to me and speaking to me about possible business opportunity. So LinkedIn it's important to stress this, LinkedIn is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It is about a relationship building process. But if you do follow that process, it works and it will get you business. So
right.
We've just talked now about the importance of not selling. So Christine, did you have a question?
Yes, Danny, that is your last mistake, right? Danny, I have
yeah,
quite a,
correct.
right.
Correct.
I have a question because we have a different range of people here today.
Mm-hmm.
We have some people that have their own business, so they are, the ones that promote their own business. So I can understand that they need to have something in their LinkedIn, like I have, very personalized, about what I do and what I can do for others. You have some people here that work for SMEs, and you have as well a couple of people here that are part of a corporation.
Yeah.
What do you suggest for this? Because some people believe that LinkedIn can be your CV, but if we are trying to get business, especially if we are, if we work for a corporation, what are your suggestions in terms of, your LinkedIn profile?
I think in all of those categories, it's really, really important to focus on your profile. It doesn't matter whether you are a partner in a global law firm or whether you're a sole business owner. It's exactly the same. What makes LinkedIn unique is the fact that people buy from people. So let's just take, for example, a global law firm. Although that law firm may have a reputation, and that might influence my decision to actually use that firm. But nonetheless, when I decide to engage with a particular partner at that firm, it'll also be because I have seen his profile on LinkedIn, I like what he has to say, I trust what he has to say, and that influences my decision. And that's really what LinkedIn's all about. It's that even if you are, in much the same way as a large business has a brand, even with a major brand, you often still buy because of particular people at that company. And your experience with that individual, each employee of a company is a brand ambassador for that company. And that's the way you need to look at your LinkedIn profile. So I would say if you get nothing else out of today, if you have your profile that is up to date and is completed, and most importantly, if it's got key information about the difference that you make to clients, that will go a long way towards people looking at your profile and then deciding to connect with you or engage with you.
All right. We have a couple of questions, if you don't mind, before we go to the
Sure.
second part. I have a question from Catherine that says, I have posted questions or discussions on groups. I find mostly other consultants reply promoting their own business. Having any of the actual target audience actually reply and engage in discussions? What is your experience, Danny?
My experience is that some groups have got a very high density of people who are promotional and sell what they who sell. I think the best groups to go to are it's trying to find groups really that don't have a lot of other competitors on them selling. So let me give you the pharmaceutical example that I work in. I tend to spend time on groups which have got quite a high number of people who actually are having discussions about pharmaceutical products or about drug regulations or about about getting drugs to market. So because the conversations are they're quite technical. You don't necessarily. It's a serious group where practitioners in the pharmaceutical industry are actually operating. So I think you need to do some due diligence before joining a group. You need to spend a bit of time just skimming through the discussions to make sure whether that group is just lots of other competitors selling, whether it is actually your target market. I think the other thing that's key is it's also down to the moderator of that group. The job of a moderator is to ensure that only people who join the group, only people who are suitable join that group, and also that if people are trying to sell, that their discussions are flagged as a promotion and not as a discussion. So in LinkedIn, you can move a group over to a promotion. The other thing that you need to take into account is that sometimes the job of a moderator is actually to take people to the side. So if people are blatantly selling on LinkedIn group, they need to actually be said, look, we have to actually remove you from the group if you're going to carry on selling. And the reason that has to be done is quality control. If you don't moderate a group properly, you get absolutely swamped by people who are just basically, as you described, as selling. There are millions of LinkedIn groups, so you do actually have to spend a little bit of time searching for the ones that work. And you don't need to spend time on a lot of groups. You can join up to 50 groups. What you need to do is just find a core of 5 or 6 groups where your target market is, and focus on those.
All right. I will agree with that. What I can say as well through my experience with LinkedIn, because I've been posting, in the groups, is that even if we have a lot of independent consultants that sometimes are the ones that engage into the discussion, is that your clients are watching you, are reading you. And I got a couple of 3 people last 3 months. I won't say a lot, but I've been, posting a few things in LinkedIn that came back to me and said, we like what you said a year ago or 2 years ago. And so we thought that was quite interesting. So even though maybe your clients are not participating in the discussion, they are reading you, they are watching you. So just be aware about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes you'll see a correlation. You'll see that there are certain people who like your discussion. There are certain people who actually view your profile afterwards. That might be somebody who's worth contacting.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
keep an eye on the people who are keeping an eye on you.
All right. I have another question before we move forward, because I have someone here, Thomas. So next comment, I'm really busy already and I have so little time to write on social media. What is the minimum I can do that can make an impact?
The minimum you can do to make an impact is to, I would say, at the very least, try and be visible. Try and put out an update once a day. It's not very difficult. It can be anything. It can be, if say you're an accountant, there's always stuff in the news about tax saving schemes, changes to the law. There's a tip of the day you can put out on how to kind of reduce your tax, your tax burden. Just be visible. Just put out one simple daily update, because even if you do that, you're going to be more visible. People will remember you. The more visible you are, when it comes to somebody thinking of who to hire, they're more likely to think of you than somebody else. And that doesn't take up a lot of time. I'm talking about maybe spending 5 minutes a day, finding something useful to share with your audience.
All right, excellent, excellent. So let's go to carry on with your presentation because it's 3, and we will please carry on asking your questions, and we will make sure that we answer them at the end. All right.
Sure, sure. Okay, so moving on. What I want to talk about is talk about influencers. I mentioned earlier about how LinkedIn enables you to get in front of influencers. Now, what an influencer is, it will take many different. They'll take many different guises depending on what business you're in. But essentially, an influencer is somebody who is somebody who is respected and who is known by your clients. And if they are basically introducing you to a client, or if they are recommending you to a client, they are considered to be someone who's got good judgment, and they're somebody who's going to be listened to. So, for example, if you were, let's just say you were a school, and you were basically say a private school, and you are looking to kind of raise the profile of your school, or let's just say you're a free school or an academy. What you might want to do is you might want to get in front of, you might want to speak to a particular journalist who is writing about education. And what you want to do is you want to put your case across to them about your school, and they might be interested in writing about it. So from a PR point of view, that you might want to go onto LinkedIn and see who is that journalist that you need to be talking to. You might be let's talk about the pharmaceutical industry. You might be looking to get your drugs into a particular NHS authority. So again, there are decision makers, but also there are people who influence those decision makers. So there are people who work in the NHS who will be able to connect you to that person. It might be that you are offering. You might be a financial company who are running employee benefits schemes for businesses. What you might need to do is you might need to speak to the director of the company, but your first point of contact might be the HR director. Now, the HR director will be an influencer because they might be somebody who has responsibility for the staff, but they have the ear of the director. So you need to always think about not just the decision maker, but who is the person who talks to the decision maker. The way LinkedIn also works is there are people who are going to be people who can refer you to clients. So let's just say, for example, if let's just say I'm an accountant and I do a lot of work. It might be that the person who is usually a good referrer for me are lawyers or solicitors, because there is some similarity between the work I do and the work that a solicitor does. So it might be that you want to use LinkedIn to build partnerships. So you need to think about influencers who can help you get in front of clients. So who are the influencers and how can they help you? So influencers can be existing customers. So existing customers are really vital to actually getting your name out. When you have on your LinkedIn profile, you don't just have, we've only talked briefly about the profile because we don't have a lot of time today, but you also need to be thinking about your influencers, people who will recommend you to clients. So let's go down the profile and you'll see that there are, right down here, there are people who have put testimonials on my profile. Okay, so there you go. Here are various recommendations on my profile. If I go up my profile, you can see them here as well. So founder and director, Brainstorm Digital, and what we have here are various recommendations from clients. Now these are influencers because people who've read these, they'll say, look, he's got a recommendation from a solicitor. I'm also in the legal sphere. This would be possibly a good fit for me as well. So that's the first example of an influence, why influencers matter. And they can also be consumer groups. So for example, it might be that you're looking to get your product to market, but you're looking to get favorable feedback from consumer groups. So it might be that you're going to be using LinkedIn to actually connect to individuals who are running those consumer groups. It might be their professional associations, and now a lot of professional associations are on LinkedIn. So for example, you've got the Federation of Small Businesses, you've got the Institute of Directors, you've got the Law Society, right? So there are a lot of professional associations that have LinkedIn groups, and these are places where you can network with other professionals who can refer you to clients, right? There are business partners you can find on LinkedIn. The other thing is thought leaders. So for example, there are people in your industry who regularly write and blog on the latest developments, who are listened to, right? The chances are those people are going to be on LinkedIn. Have you looked them up? Have you connected to them? They might be people you need to really get in front of those people. Journalists we talked about. And also, of course, there are bloggers. So all of these different sorts of people who you will find on LinkedIn. The beauty of LinkedIn is it's very, very easy to search on the professional, to go to the advanced search on LinkedIn and actually go out and find these people. Okay, so how can influencers help you reach new clients? Well, the first thing about an influencer is they're seen as impartial. So I can go to, let's just say, for example, that I am looking to pitch to accountants. Now, I can go up to an accountant and say, look, we're very good at what we do, we're the best, we're experts. They're not going to view me as impartial because I'm promoting myself. On the other hand, if an existing customer goes and talks to them, or an existing customer puts a recommendation on my profile, they're much more likely to be trusted. And that's ultimately also what social media is about. Social media is all about people having conversations, but it's people having conversations about you rather than you having conversations about you. If lots of people are talking about your social media and say, look, these people are great, I really value them, people will buy from you. The other thing is about professionals is that it will act as your advocate. So, for example, clients who have used you, this is a Twitter example, but it applies to LinkedIn just as much, right? If somebody is recommending you, they will act as your advocate, and they will act as cheerleaders for you, and that makes a huge difference, right? When people put comments on your LinkedIn company page, when you place an update, people put comments on your page commending you. If people recommend your products on your LinkedIn company page, if they put recommendations on your LinkedIn profile, they're your advocates. The other thing is, an influencer can reach way beyond your existing audience. So on LinkedIn, you might have 500, 600 connections. What your advocates or influencers have, they have their own LinkedIn network. So for example, if you are posting an update and then they're sharing that update with their followers, or if you can also, of course, the other thing you can do on LinkedIn is you can see who influencers are connected to. So for example, I might be looking to do business with a senior director of a particular company. Now, I don't know that person, but what I can do is I can go onto an influencer's LinkedIn network and I can see that they're connected to that person. So what I can do is I can then ask them to recommend me. And that's the value of influencers, that they've got access to markets and to audiences that extend well beyond what your audience is. Those are all reasons why you need to use LinkedIn to speak to influencers. Now, the most important thing you want to get out of this afternoon is how can you reach potential leads. So what I want to talk about really is the key ways that you can reach potential leads. So number one, use LinkedIn to eavesdrop on potential sales opportunities. I talked to you before about LinkedIn groups. The beauty of LinkedIn groups is that there are loads and loads of discussions going on, and some of those discussions might be related to what you have to offer. So for example, let's just say, I'm going to give a random example, let's just say you sell video conferencing software, and you go onto LinkedIn group and somebody says, we use this particular video conferencing system, it's lousy, we don't like it. What you could then do is you could then join that conversation and ask them about what other alternatives they're looking at. Or you could simply go and connect directly to that person and say to them, I saw your conversation on LinkedIn, I have a suggestion of something else you could use. So use LinkedIn as a way to eavesdrop on potential sales opportunities. The next thing you want to do is to use LinkedIn's advanced search to pinpoint who you want to meet. Now this is a really, really neglected tool on LinkedIn. You don't have to pay any extra to use this. It's this particular thing here, advanced. Now what I want to do, what I'm going to use in this particular example is, I might be somebody who, my target market is, I want to speak to HR directors, right? And what I want to do is I want to meet HR directors of a particular size of company. Now this is something you've got to have a LinkedIn Premium subscription for. So I may be looking for companies of 51 and more employees. What I've done is I've searched for HR director. I've searched for people who I'm not yet connected to. And I'm looking for people who are within about 25 miles of my postcode. So WD6 1JN. And we're going to set it at 25 miles. Let's just adjust that. So second level connections, group members, to HR directors. Sorry, let me just change that. It should be HR director. So you need to actually put in the precise job title. I've done HR plus director because I want to have it exactly in that sequence, rather than the word HR and the word director appearing in the profile. Okay, so I'm going to search again. And there you go. We've got 272 HR directors within 25-mile radius. Now, there are going to be other job titles. There might be HR manager, HR director. But what I've done is I've looked for HR directors above 50 employees. And what I've seen is there are people who are second-level connections and also members of groups that I'm a member of who I need to be talking to. Now, I can connect directly to those people, but I can also get referred. This is what I meant by using influencers. What I have with all these people is I have people in my LinkedIn network that I can talk to who will refer me to these people. So that's the next point. Use influencers in your network to refer you to clients. So I want to just to wrap up today's presentation, what I would like you to do is to just consider very carefully the following questions. So the first thing is, how can you effectively resource your LinkedIn activity? This was a question one of you asked earlier. So I think the really key thing to remember is LinkedIn is a vital way to connect to clients. But LinkedIn doesn't cost money necessarily, but it does cost time. And what you need to do is, you do need to, putting up a status update, that doesn't take up much time. Updating your profile, that doesn't take up much time. What takes a little bit more time is actually spending the time connecting to prospects and going on to LinkedIn groups, and also on top of going on to LinkedIn groups, joining in LinkedIn discussions, but also actually, once you've connected to somebody on LinkedIn, you also need to find the time to follow up with them. So let's say I've connected to an HR director. I might have connected in the last month to 50 new HR directors that I've never spoken to before. I need to think quite carefully, 3-4 weeks later, what am I going to do with those people? Am I just going to connect to them? If all you do is connect to people on LinkedIn, nothing much is going to happen. You actually need to be a bit proactive and actually talk to those people. It might be just sharing some useful update with them. It might be asking them a question. But you need to actually plan. You need to actually have a plan. And that all does take time. So how are you going to resource that activity? And if you don't have the time to do it, do you have somebody else who can do that for you? The next thing, so that's my next question, is do you have the manpower to manage your lead generation campaign? There's two things you can do with LinkedIn that we would recommend. One is that you actually get somebody, if you're very busy yourself, that you actually get a member of staff to actually manage your LinkedIn profile and actually go out and actually follow up with these leads. A little bit like you would employ somebody as a telemarketer to pick up a phone and actually call up leads, you should also think about somebody in your company who actually follows up LinkedIn connections. So that is something that you really do need to allocate time for. LinkedIn doesn't cost money, but it does cost time. And obviously somebody needs to be paid to do that. The other thing is, do you have content to share with your audience? So, you need to find something valuable to share with your audience on a daily basis. You also need to follow up with your LinkedIn connections and actually send them personal messages. And all of that, obviously you need to have a plan. So if you, for example, if you've marketed yourself as the accountant that's an expert on saving tax, what are you doing on LinkedIn to actually speak to your audience about how you can save them tax? So you need to have really good quality content to share with your audience. That's something that involves actually a bit of planning, and again, that also involves resources to do that. Finally, do you have the tools to do your job? If you are running a LinkedIn campaign, as well as actually sending individual messages to people on LinkedIn, as well as connecting to people, you also need to have some software there to actually manage this and automate this for you. Because if you do all this manually, it's going to take up a lot of time. So some of the tools that you can use, for example, like Hootsuite, enable you to schedule updates that go out on LinkedIn on a daily basis to your connections. There's also email software you can use to actually manage the process of keeping your LinkedIn connections up to date. So you do need to think a bit about having the time, having the staff, and having the tools in place. If you don't have that infrastructure in place in your company, it might also be worth thinking about whether there is an external company that can help you to manage that. So what I want to do is, just to kind of sum up today, the 7 key mistakes that businesses make on LinkedIn can be downloaded as an ebook, which all of you who are attending today's seminar can download for free. So if you send an email to that email address, Danny, and my email address, danny@brainstormdigital.co.uk, I'll be very happy to send you a free copy of the ebook, The 7 Biggest Mistakes Businesses Make on LinkedIn. If you'd like any more information about what we've talked about today, these are my social media contacts. That's my email address, as I just said. If you go to our blog, you can read more tips and hints about how to make better use of LinkedIn. That's our Twitter account, and that's our Facebook account. And finally, that's our LinkedIn address. So thank you very much for listening. And do you have any questions?
Yes, we have few. We have few here, Danny. All right. Yes. All right. So we start with Jim. What is the easiest way to grow your network fast?
Okay. So the easiest way to grow your network fast is to start off connecting to people you already know. When you use software like Outlook, you can actually export your address book into what's called a CSV file. What you can do with that CSV file is you can upload it to LinkedIn. So what that will do is it will send a connection request to all your email connections to connect with your LinkedIn. Now you can choose who you want to connect to and who you don't want to connect to. But start off at the very least by getting your database, or if you've got a CRM system, you've probably got a huge number of existing customers and other business contacts that aren't yet on LinkedIn. So why don't you actually export your database of contacts and upload that to LinkedIn? That's a really quick and easy way to grow your network. The other thing you should consider doing is periodically going onto LinkedIn. LinkedIn's got a feature called People You May Know, which you've probably seen. When you log into LinkedIn, down the right-hand side, there's this thing on the right that says People You May Know. If you click on that, surprisingly, a lot of the people you will know. These are very often people who are connected to your existing LinkedIn connections. And as you know, very often the people connected to the people you know are people you also know. So start off by actually going to your LinkedIn connections and looking at people you may know. There's a lot of people here who you already be familiar with, you can connect to really easily.
All right. So we have more questions. A very good question from Tom Flateau. It is better to get recommendations on my personal profile or on my company products and services pages?
I think both are important. I think in terms of, I think certainly if you're a small business, I think what's going to be really key is your competence. So I would actually get first, and also people spend much more time looking at your personal profile than they will at your company profile. So first things first, get your recommendations on your personal profile done first. Also, company recommendations, all that is it's usually just someone who's pressed a button. You can just recommend by pressing a button, and it says Danny's recommended you. Whereas with LinkedIn, with the recommendations that appear on someone's profile, that actually has to be a written recommendation, and that has a lot more value. I wouldn't go crazy about it. You don't need to have hundreds of recommendations. If you have 5 or 6 good recommendations that that basically has a cross section of different clients, explaining why they worked with you, that helps. So it might be you work with lawyers, you work with accountants, you work with architects, surveyors. If you have a mixture of testimonials from those different businesses, someone who comes from those different industries will be able to make an informed judgment. These are the sorts of people Danny works with. Yes, I'd be happy to work with them.
All right, excellent. So what you are saying is that because that is exactly the same problem that I have myself, is that we can always get a written recommendation on my personal profile, but I can have something like press recommend one of the products from someone, and that is very easier. It's easier, right?
Yeah, I mean, what's good is product recommendations are really easy to do because with a written recommendation, someone's got to spend the time writing something. To just go onto your LinkedIn company page and press the button is much quicker. It doesn't take a lot of effort for people.
All right. Yeah, because Thomas is just highlighting the fact that you can write recommendations on products and services pages as well. Yeah.
No, that is really important.
Yeah. All right. Another another question from Catherine. I have heard that people don't see your daily updates unless you follow them, as opposed to connect. Can you send valuable info blocks, etc., to a number of your connections direct? Example, leadership leadership tips, I suppose, to HR directors.
Oh, you can send your I think your question is, can your updates be shared with outside your own network? Can it be shared with the people you want to talk to?
She's even adding something like a one email out to a distribution list approach.
Okay, so with LinkedIn, there's updates. You can choose who to share this with. If you want to get updates out to more people, there's LinkedIn's email system, but it's not as good as it used to be. If I can just show you why. You used to be able to, with LinkedIn's email, there used to be a drop down. So you could basically, what you could do is you could select, I want to say, for example, I want to talk to accountants in Harrow area. What LinkedIn would enable you to do is it would enable you to create this kind of, enable you to click on a drop down that says Harrow, and then on the drop down of different professions you could click accountants, and then it would send a message to all those people. LinkedIn no longer enables you to do that. So what I recommend is, if you're looking to target a larger number of people, rather than you want to get targeted messages out to specific people, what I would do is you actually need to export your LinkedIn database out of LinkedIn and then import it into your own email system.
All right, so you need to do that.
Unfortunately, LinkedIn's become much harder to use as a way to get messages out to lots of people. You really do need to actually use, for example, you can export your LinkedIn database. If you go to connections, you can export your connections, and what you then do is you would import it into something like MailChimp, and then from there you can segment your, you can segment your mailing list, and then send out messages to the people you want to talk to.
Right. So do you suggest that we segment them, outside of LinkedIn and we re-import them, or we need to do the segmentation inside of it in LinkedIn?
What the advantage of importing them to another system is that LinkedIn doesn't enable you to personalize your message. So if I send a message out to 100 people, it won't personalize it so it says Dear Danny, Dear Joe, Dear whoever.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, and also LinkedIn emails are text only. So they're very limited. You can still send round robin emails. So I can go to my connections. I'll just show you. I can go to connections and I can tag my connections. So for example, each person who I'm connected to, I can tag them as a particular contact.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what I can do is, once I've tagged my contacts, let's just show you, like group members, right? What I can then do with that group, I can select them and I can send a message to them. So you can group all your HR directors, you can group all your lawyers together, but you've actually got to tag them to do that.
All right. And last question, Danny, because it's already 3:03. That again from Catherine. Is that not considered as spam when you do that? When eventually you send, maybe 100 or 500 emails? What is your opinion?
I think with LinkedIn you have to do both. I think that if someone is a lead, you do actually have to send personalized messages. But at the same time, you've got a large database. If you've got 1,000 connections on LinkedIn, no one's got the time to send private messages to 1,000 people. So I think what you need to do is you need to consider using email software for actually connecting to your larger LinkedIn network. But also, if you're looking to build a relationship with particular leads, you need to think about also sending out quite personalized messages. So it's both of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I personally, I send a newsletter. I mean, I don't know if, I send a newsletter on a monthly basis. Yeah. And when people connect with me or accept my connection, I usually say at the bottom of my LinkedIn profile that they accept to receive at least, promotion on my newsletter, if it's my newsletter on a monthly basis, right? Obviously, they can disconnect, they can, eventually unsubscribe if they want to. But I just said to people, if you accept to connect with me, be prepared to receive my newsletter on a monthly basis.
It's fine. You see, people always have, provided you give people the option to unsubscribe,
Yes.
it's fine. Yeah?
Yeah,
So if you connected to somebody, if they 2 or 3 weeks later receive a newsletter from you, that's fine, provided they have the option to unsubscribe. I don't think that's an issue. It's very, very hard to send to send personal messages to 1,000 people. So you have to automate the process. And that's, if you don't do that, you've got no way of keeping people aware of you.
Excellent, excellent. Danny, thank you so much for this outstanding presentation. I had already 2 or 3 people asking if this presentation will be available. So we hope so. Have recorded it. So I just need to make sure that we are able to upload it in YouTube or somewhere else. So keep with us. If you are interested, just send us, an email, and we will try to tell you maybe in the next 2 or 3 days where you can find it. Again, if you have any question to Danny, feel free to get in touch with him. But I think that you already offer us a fantastic gift that is your 70 pages about LinkedIn. So obviously, I hope that I will receive it as well. But Danny, thank you so much again.
My pleasure, Christina.
I thought that was fantastic, and yeah, LinkedIn, I cannot emphasize this more than this. It is a fantastic tool to find clients, but even more important, to clients to find you. Won't you agree with that? Yes, more than anything.
I would totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you again, Danny. So we'll keep, for a moment, your contact details so that people can eventually write them down. So I will stop the recording, that's for sure. And from people, thank you, Danny. Very interesting. Thank you, Danny. Thanks, it was great. So just to share some of the feedback from the attendees, Danny.
Okay. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And we hope to see you very soon at another of our presentations or webinars. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Bye.